Hello and welcome to our latest installment of Solutions for Success. I'm Jonathan Hamilton, President at Point Alliance, and we are talking today about how to securely connect cloud services to your on-premises data using Microsoft's Data Access Gateway. So what we've found is as many of our clients are moving to the cloud, there may still be some proprietary or sensitive data on-premise legacy applications and other things and other reasons why you won't want to move all your data to the cloud, perhaps now or ever. And we're lucky enough today to be joined by Jan Crow, our Director of Consulting Services, to talk to us a little bit about how we do that leveraging Microsoft's Data Access Gateway. So I will turn it over to Jan, and she can give us some of that information. Over to you, Jan.
Thanks, Jonathan. Good morning, everyone. Today we'll talk about accessing on-premises data using Microsoft Data Access Gateway. We'll also briefly review Microsoft's hybrid connections feature. There are lots of reasons for companies to keep their data on-premise, and as such, Microsoft developed several solutions to allow companies to take advantage of their cloud services while securely connecting to the data stored on-prem. Let's quickly review a couple of scenarios where these solutions would be useful. Say you want to create a custom web part for your SharePoint Online site, and this web part would need to display information from a line of business application stored on-prem. This can be achieved in part by leveraging Microsoft's hybrid connection solution. Or say you want to create a Power BI report with data stored on premises that you want to automatically update with current data and share with others inside and outside your organization through the Power BI cloud service. This can be achieved by leveraging Microsoft's on-premises data gateway. So let's talk about the on-premises data gateway first, since this is the main topic of our presentation today. The on-premises data access gateway provides secure data transfer between on-prem data sources and cloud services such as Power BI, Power Automate, Power Apps, Azure Analysis Services, Azure Logic Apps, and Microsoft Flow. By using a gateway, organizations can keep their databases and other data sources on their local networks, yet securely use that on-premises data securely use the on-premises data in cloud services. The data gateway can be deployed centrally and allows you to manage data connections for multiple cloud apps, so you need only to install one gateway in order to enable cloud to on-premises data connections. Once the gateway is installed, it is available on all supported apps and can be used to set up multiple on-premises data connections. There are two types of gateways for each different scenario. One is a multi-user scenario that allows multiple users to connect to multiple on-premises data sources. And with a single gateway installation, you can use the on-premises data gateway with all the supported services. This gateway is well suited to complex scenarios where multiple people need to access multiple data sources. The personal mode allows one user to connect data sources and can't be shared with others. On the on-premises data gateway, personal mode can be only used with Power BI. This is particularly well suited to scenarios where you're the only one who creates reports and don't need to share any data sources with others. So let's look at how the gateway works. First, to install the gateway software on a computer in your organization's local network where your on-premises data sources are located. It happens to run as a Windows service called On-Premises Data Gateway. So it's easy to find in your services app on the local machine. This local service is registered with the Gateway Cloud Service through the Azure Service Bus. There are slight differences in the configuration depending on the Microsoft Cloud services used. Now let's look at what happens when you interact with an element that is connected to an on-premise data source. Depending on the cloud service, you might need to configure a data source for the gateway. The cloud service creates a query and the encrypted credentials for the on-premise data source. The query and credentials are then sent to the gateway queue for processing. The gateway service analyzes the query and pushes a request to the Azure Service Bus. The Azure Service Bus then sends the pending request to the gateway. The gateway gets the query, decrypts the credentials, and connects to one or more data sources with those credentials. The gateway sends the query to the data source to be run. The results are then sent from the data source all the way back to the gateway and then to the cloud service. The service is then able to use those query results. Queries like Power BI refreshes and Azure Analysis Services refreshes can return a large amount of data. For such queries, data is temporarily stored on the gateway machine. This data storage continues until all data is received from the data source by the service. The data is then sent back to the cloud service. The deployment of on-premises data gateway is very simple. It includes gateway setup installation and gateway registration. Once installed, you sign into your Office 365 account in order to proceed with registering your data access gateway. After deploying the on-premises data gateway software, you can now connect your on-prem data to Office 365 applications. For Power BI, you need to add your data sources to the gateway. For Power Apps, Logic Apps, and Microsoft Flow, the gateway is ready to use. After you sign into your Office 365 account, you have access to many features in the on-premises gateway application. You can see the status of the gateway cluster. You can restart your gateway. You can see the service settings. There's also a number of diagnostics features such as additional logging, gateway logs, network port tests, and network status, and also to check the HTTPS mode. The HTTPS mode forces the gateway to communicate with the Azure Service Bus by using HTTPS instead of TCP when turned on. You can also create custom data connectors that are used by Power BI, and there are a set of recovery keys that this feature doesn't appear until you've signed in, and they're not available in all on-premises data gateway modes, such as personal mode. You can connect to on-prem applications to Office 365 by signing in as an account used to deploy the gateway. And you can sign into any one of the Office 365 applications such as Power Apps or Microsoft Flow. Then you add your required connections. Connections can be added in any one of the Office 365 applications that are supported, and those connections will be available for access to all the other supported apps. For example, in the SharePoint connection, you can select an option, Connect using the on-premises gateway, and all you need to do is provide farm admin credentials and select your relevant on-premises data gateway and click the Add Connection. In the SQL connection, select the option to connect using on-premises data gateway, provide a SQL Server name and database name, then select the authentication type and provide user credentials to connect to SQL. Then you select your relevant on-premises data gateway and click Add Connection. Using a single on-premises data gateway, you can create multiple connections to connect to multiple on-premise applications to the Office 365 applications. For example, if you added an on-premise SQL connection by signing into Power Apps, then you can also use that same SQL connection for Microsoft Flow. There are a few limits to consider when using the on-premises data gateway. For logic apps, Power Apps, and Power Automate, those support both read-write operations through the gateway. There's a 2 megabyte payload limit for write operations. There's a 2 megabyte request limit for read operations and an 8 megabyte compressed data response limit for those same read operations. And while using the gateway with Power BI in direct query mode, there is a 16 megabyte uncompressed data response limit. So now let's talk about the Azure hybrid connections. You can't move every application to the cloud easily, but what if you want your cloud app to talk to your on-prem resources? Azure Hybrid Connections enables you to connect your Azure app services, including Azure Functions, to an existing on-prem services or API. Hybrid Connections enable bidirectional, binary stream communication and simple datagram flow between two networked applications. With the Azure App Service, Hybrid Connections can be used to access application resources in any network that can make outbound calls to Azure over port 443. The Hybrid Connections relay connects two parties by providing a rendezvous point in the Azure cloud that parties can discover and connect to and from their own network's perspective. The rendezvous point is called Hybrid Connection. The Hybrid Connection service allows for relaying WebSocket connections and HTTPS requests and responses. The Hybrid Connections feature does not know or care what the application protocol is or what you are accessing. It simply provides the network access. Hybrid connections do not apply to on-prem scenarios. They are just useful for debugging app services running in Azure. This is showing a screenshot of my Hybrid Connection Manager that I've used for a SharePoint connection to get data from a SQL database and to display in a web part in SharePoint Online. For example, if one of your, so using this Hybrid Connection Manager, if one of your services is misbehaving, you can host that service on your local machine running Visual Studio. And once you set up your local machine, you set up a hybrid connection on one of the calling app services to route via the Hybrid Connection Manager, or HCM, on your local machine. This will let you debug the service directly through Visual Studio and save the day, hopefully. There are several benefits to using the hybrid connection capability, including apps can securely access on-prem services and systems. The feature does not require an internet accessible endpoint. It is quick and easy to set up, and no gateways are required. And each connection matches to a single host or port combination. The connections are all outbound over standard web ports, such as 443, and normally does not require firewall holes, which would make your security team very happy. Because the feature is network level, it is agnostic to the language used by your application and the technologies used by your endpoint. It can be used to provide access in multiple networks from a single application. It is supported in GA for Windows apps, and it is in preview for Linux apps. Now, of course, the benefits always have some challenges. There are several scenarios that are not supported by the Azure Hybrid Connections. You cannot mount a drive. You cannot use UDP. You also cannot use TCP-based services that use dynamic ports, such as FTP passive or extended passive modes. There's no support for LDAP because it can require UDP. And the support for Active Directory is not available because you cannot domain join an app service. Thanks very much, everybody, for tuning in.